Hey there, it's Bruce Hill, and I am the host of Media from the Heart, and I want to welcome you specifically to another episode of this podcast that has just become such an extraordinary place for people to comment and to come together as a community. In today's episode, you are going to meet Jennifer Wigmore. She is an actress that is known for The Winter's Palace, which was a more recent movie that was on last month. There's a lot more to her than that. You're going to find that we had a great audience, a great conversation. I definitely look forward to sharing this with you. So without any further ado, enjoy. It is so wonderful to be back for another episode of Media from the Heart. And my name is Bruce Hill. I am your host. And I have a really special guest with us today, and I'd like to introduce her. Her name is Jennifer Wigmore, and you might have seen her. You know, if you are a Hallmark fan or GAC movie fan, GAC Family movie fan, you probably might have seen The Winter Palace. That's actually how I first knew her. That's I realized actually that I might have seen her in other things too, but that's the big thing. But let me just read a brief introduction so that we know a little bit more about the lovely and talented Jennifer. Jennifer is a multidisciplinary artist in acting, writing, and visual art, and has worked for over 20 years as a professional artist. She has performed in theaters across Canada and has also appeared in numerous television series and films. Some of her recent credits include The Winter Palace, Why the Last Man, Malory Towers, and Designated Survivor. She also recently narrated a new novel called The Spirits Up. She completed her BFA and MFA in visual art at OCAD University in Toronto and continues to work as an acting educator and as painting instructor. Jennifer is an avid volunteer and advocate and serves on several boards. In addition to acting, Jennifer maintains a thriving visual art practice and is also writing her first play called Measured Squared. I found when I was reading over your bio, I was thoroughly impressed. I mean, you were just like this all around artist, like you could do it all. It's kind of what I'm thinking. So it is such an honor and a privilege to have you, Jennifer. And so thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love doing this stuff because you see us on TV and in the film sometimes, and you don't really get to know us, and it's just so important that you sometimes get to see the real us, not just who we play on TV. I play a lot of different characters, and so I play a lot of mean people, which may be maybe a little shocking. But I also play really nice people. But so sometimes it's hard to know what is she really like, and so really happy to be here to help, you know, for the cause.
Well, thank you so much for being here. So the question, of course, that I always want to know, and oftentimes when I've been doing interviews for a few years here, and the fans always want to know, how did she get started? And so my question is, what inspired you to pursue this path of being involved in the arts?
Oh, well, that's an easy one. It would be my dad. So my dad was a actor and director, and he was avid theater maker and creator, and that was his sort of love and his passion. But his Joe job, like the thing that he did for a living to make money, because that's not going to make you a lot of money, is he ran a concert hall in the town that I grew up in, which was called Edmonton, Alberta. And so he ran a very large concert hall there. And so I saw so much, or I was very privileged that my dad, got to bring in amazing artists and opera and dance and ballet and every kind of musician you could possibly imagine. I saw at the Jubilee Auditorium, and so there was that. I was exposed to a wealth of incredible music and art. But then my father was also this amateur theater guy, and so I used to spend a lot of time with him at the theater, watching him direct his plays and watching and then the cast parties. I mean, how do you not fall in love with actors when you go to their cast parties? So, imagine me at 9 going, "Hi," you know. It was a kind of a magical upbringing. So it was also no surprise that I also became an artist. I don't think anybody thought that I would do anything other than that. Ever since I was a kid, it was just how I expressed myself in the world, and I think over the years I have learned that artistry can touch many areas, and that if you're artistic, or if you have an artistic passion, that it actually isn't really, you can't really contain it in one box. And so I started, painting and writing, and all those disciplines came out of acting, and were connected to it, and now they're all sort of one big thing. I do them
Wow.
all. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wonderful. It's a wonderful life.
And I'm quite impressed. I mean, first of all, that's amazing that it you don't always hear the stories of children growing up in artistic households. So
Mm.
often I'm finding that when I've done a lot of interviews, people had to um, fight against maybe their parents saying, well, we want you to be a lawyer or a doctor or whatever the case is. And they pursued that path, and then they had to step out and say, no, I really want to be involved in the arts. But how cool that you had the opportunity growing up in that kind of environment. So you were just, it made perfect sense for you to jump in and do art. So that's always, for me, that's a refreshing story to hear, because not, I mean, not the other stories aren't, because most of the time, even if the parents were not on board, they eventually get on board with, because they love their kids and they want their kids to succeed. But that was just, that's nice to hear, because you don't always hear that. And so
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. But then I think the really cool thing that I zeroed in on is the education that you've done. That I don't always hear in this industry, because people have a lot of different paths that they take to. Some don't take any traditional schooling. Some do lots. And in your case, so you have a bachelor's and a master's. Is that right? So
I actually
why
have
did you choose? Why did you choose to go the route of getting going for a bachelor's and then going for a master's? Why did you do that?
Oh, it was a very, I actually have two bachelors. Because I have a bachelor in musical theater, and I also have a bachelor's in visual art and painting. And then, it's funny, I didn't do my second BFA until I was in my 40s. And that, I don't know if any of you have gone back to school when you're in your 40s, but it's a whole different ball game, and I highly recommend it because it's totally different. It feels really, really different, and you just care so much more, and you understand it on a level that you didn't when you were forced to do it in high school, and so I really enjoyed it. And because I had been a practicing artist for a while already, I I kind of advanced a couple of years, so I didn't have to do the whole 4 years. I only had to do two. But by the end of the 2 years, I was like, "Oh, I don't want to go yet. I don't want to leave." And so I literally applied for my master's and went straight into my master's right after that, and did another 2 years, and my master's at the same school. And it was an incredibly rewarding experience, and I really, really grew as a person, as an artist, and I learned a lot about myself. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Well, that's good to hear. First of all, I was surprised when you said, "Oh yeah, I went back to school when I was in my 40s." I'm like, because you look incredible. I would never. I didn't even think. I mean, I'm in my 40s, and I'm thinking, oh, I didn't. I was thinking you were. I was thinking you were a lot younger than that. I'll be honest.
Oh, thank you. It's all genes. It's all genes.
Okay, I understand. I understand.
It's here.
Yeah.
Genes and good. I'm actually 54.
Oh my goodness. I would.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm 47, and I am actually currently going back to school myself. So going
Hey.
back. Yeah. So when you were talking about that, I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about because I'm right in the middle
Right?
of. I'm taking. I was a music major, and so I was a music teacher for many years. And now I am going back for business marketing. Is what I'm doing, and I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. What you were saying about going back to school in your 40s, yeah, it is pretty incredible. I will agree. It is well worth it. If people, there's something about going back to school when you're at that point in your life. So I'm with you, and I may eventually get a master's as well. I'm kind of considering it. So that's great. Oh my. So you've also been an art teacher for, where is it, like 20 some years? Is that what I remember?
Yeah, I mean, I've been teaching acting for, gosh, a long time, since like 2004, something like around there. I started teaching acting. Um, I've taught a famous Hallmark star. He
Ooh.
was one of my first class. It's gonna. I wonder if anybody knows Kevin McGarry.
Oh my goodness. Oh goodness. If what you are going to have the McGarrys going crazy when they hear that, because you have, I think it's like I think that's what they call themselves. I think that's right. The McGarrys, if I remember right. I think that's what they all call themselves. Hopefully I get right with the fandom.
Yep, I directed him in his first show.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's astonishing to me what's happened to him, and he was lovely when he was a kid, and he's lovely now.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've had the joy and honor of chatting with him a couple times, meeting him in person. Yeah, he's pretty incredible. And
Great.
I remember when he came to Hallmark. I actually interviewed him when he came to Hallmark. I interviewed him right before his first official Hallmark movie, and that was so I could tell it's like, this guy's gonna blow up on Hallmark, and sure enough, he's got quite the following. Well, that's cool.
Well,
So
I knew it back then in 2004, and I was like, well, you kid, you're going to do really well. It took him a few years to get there, but he got there. Yeah, I'm really proud of
yeah,
him. Yeah. Yeah, and so I've been teaching acting since then. And then as soon as I finished my master's, I started teaching art. And it's just wonderful. I mean, teaching, any artist will tell you that teaching makes you not only a better person, but it certainly makes you a better artist, because I learn as much from my students as they might learn from me. And I love teaching, and it's something I try and keep, because it just keeps me inspired and keeps me humble, but it's also just a very rewarding experience. So I love it. I love teaching. Love it.
we have one of the members, Chad. He just wrote in the comments, said that since Kevin McGarry was your student, he's ready to sign up to your class.
Thanks,
He's an
Chad.
aspiring actor, and so he's all ready to jump in. He's a great guy. I've met Chad. He's pretty incredible. So yeah. So Chad, you're gonna have to get with Jennifer here and see if she can take acting from her. You never know. Might be worth checking out.
Never know. I've been doing some online acting classes at the university that I teach at, and that's not my favorite thing, but it's possible.
Okay, well, Chad, hopefully you will get with Jennifer here. We could hook you up, and that might work out, because I know Chad wants to be in a Hallmark movie. Chad, that's his dream, and so I've talked with him before. So that's great. Well, that is exciting. My daughter is in her first year of college now, taking art education. That's what she's doing, and So I have a lot of artistic talents. Art, like visual art, is not one of them. I mean, she does it all. And so, do you have is there a certain type of visual art that you really enjoy the most?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think I really love painting the figure, and my heart moves to the figure. It's a super challenging aspect of painting, and of course, anatomy and perspective and those kinds of things make it very challenging. But my heart lives in painting the figure. But I also, in my master's, I created what I called paint sculptures, which were reflections of process about how we make painting. And I made paintings out of paint, but I didn't paint them. And yeah, you can see those on my website if you want to go see them. But those I kind of broke open a whole new area of my visual art practice that I really enjoyed. And but I do a lot of commissions. I've been painting commissions for a long time. I guess I love making people happy. I paint a lot of dogs. Um, I know it's nuts, but I love painting dogs. I mean, dogs are the best. They make me laugh all the time. I mean, I have two crazy dogs, or I have one crazy dog, and I'm dog sitting right now, a friend's dog. So now I officially feel like I have two dogs, but I only have one. But I love painting dogs, and so I've been doing that for a lot of years, and that makes me really happy.
Oh, that's cool. So, well, let's just talk about the acting. So, do you remember? I'm sure you remember, but could you tell us about your first acting memory? It doesn't have to be professional. Whatever you think of as like your very first acting role that you remember.
Well, of course, I was acting at the theater that my father ran when I was a kid. And so I think I was like sort of background chorus in a Shakespeare play called The Winter's Tale. I remember that really clearly. I don't think I had any lines. I think I was like 10 or 11 maybe. I don't really, yeah, I don't remember a lot about it, but I do remember the feeling of being, backstage with everybody and some of these people that were friends of my dad's and used to come to the house and stuff. And so I just remember going, yeah, this feels like home to me. And then I did a bunch of stuff there. I didn't really do very much in high school. I didn't have a great high school drama program, so I didn't really do an awful lot in high school, but I did do some. And then I didn't really do more until I got into theater school, which was in the early 90s. And that's when I just sort of got right in and never looked back. And I think my favorite role was Isabella from Measure for Measure, which is another Shakespeare play. And I did that in school, and it was a life-changing experience.
Then moving from that, then what was your first professional acting role?
I think that was actually professional because I got paid to do that one. I couldn't believe it. I was like, somebody's going to pay me to do this part. This is amazing. And that was at like what we call I don't know if you have theater. You must have theater festivals, and this was called a fringe. We call them the
Oh
fringe.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so they're like shorter plays, like an hour. I think it can be tops an hour and a half. And there's multiple, and they come from all over. And so that was this hour and a half production of Measure for Measure. But I think, after I finished theater school, I did a couple of jobs at the Stage West. You guys probably have Stage West out there,
Yeah, I know
like
about it. Yeah. Mhm.
dinner theatery things. But then my first big one was at the big regional theater in my hometown, which was Edmonton, which was the Citadel Theater. I played Marion Peru in The Music Man.
Oh,
And
oh my goodness.
yeah, that sort of launched the career. And shortly after that, I moved to Toronto and started doing stuff here, and then quickly got into film and television when I moved to Toronto because that was in 1995. And yeah, an amazing career, I have to say, pretty amazing.
I would, man, when you said Marion Peru Music Man, I could totally see that. I mean, I'm looking at you and thinking, yep, I can see that. I could see you doing that. That was always a very special musical to me. I'm all about musicals. I grew up with musicals and always wanting to be involved with musicals, and I ended up doing it a little differently. I got I had that had some opportunities when I was a music teacher to do some stuff like that, but that I can totally see that must have been really great. I can
It
imagine.
was wonderful. And musicals have me. You just like sort of figurative painting is my, like musicals get me all the time. Sign me up. I'll do a musical anywhere, anywhere.
Okay.
I'll sing them. Yeah, I love doing musicals. There's just something super special about them, about the art form of them that makes them so different than other theatrical experiences. The combination of story and music is just such a, I don't know, I love them. Love them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So you were in a show that I'm familiar with, although I don't think I saw the season that you were in, Designated Survivor, because you in the final season, is that right?
Yes, I
Okay.
was. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
one I never got around to seeing. I think I saw one episode of it, maybe
I
two,
think
and
it's
then I
still on
never got.
Netflix.
It's still on Netflix, exactly. But
Yeah.
my mom and I were huge fans of Designated Survivor. When it got canceled, then it was like, oh, and then then we heard that Netflix picked it up, and then I was always going to go back and watch it. There's so much out there, so I don't always get around to watching it. But I know that particular show. I mean, that had to have been amazing to work on that show.
It was great. It was great. I mean, there's so many good people on that show. In that third season, there's some just terrific actors. Uh, oh, the Anthony from ER. Do you remember ER?
Mm-hmm.
So he's on third season, and what a guy. I mean, like, just he's as sweet as he was back then. Um, and Maggie, of course, and
Mm-hmm.
Kiefer. These are really good people. Really fun to work with them, and yeah, it was a real blessing. I came out of nowhere. I had no. It just arrived on my doorstep, and it was lovely. I did 6 episodes of the 10.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
cool. Well, now I have a reason that I need to go and look it up and finish
Yeah.
watching it. It's like I always meant to. There are those shows that I mean, my mom and I are constantly just discovering shows. I mean, we're just discovering Castle and Bones and like all these shows. Yeah, we're just now discovering these because I never really watched. There was a period of time I didn't watch a lot of TV, and then I just didn't, and then I didn't watch network TV. I was all about Hallmark, and so now I'm finding I'm so grateful that that we have all these streaming services because we can go back and watch those things that for whatever reason we missed. I mean, my mom is like hooked on Castle. I mean, she is just like
Or that's easy to do, Mom. Easy to do. Uh, yeah, it's funny. And then you think about, like, there's so much now that you can watch. You're so right. But then you think about all the stuff that isn't available that you want to watch again, you know? And I'm just like, when are we going to get see some of those older shows that I can't see, that I want to see again, that I remember. Um, I did a series in my beginning of my career called Little Men,
oh
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
was a oh, it was some wonderful, wonderful show. We did it for 2 seasons, and it was. it was a magical show.
Oh yeah.
And I'm so surprised that that show has not somehow been picked up by some channel and is airing somewhere, because it was, if talk about every week a Hallmark movie. I mean, it really was like a Hallmark movie every week. And it was based on Louisa May Alcott's last book, Little Men. So it had everything. It had period, it had romance, it
Mhm.
had nostalgia, it had everything. It was a wonderful show. And I keep waiting for somebody to bring that back. So I sure would like to see some of those episodes again. I played Meg, of the Three
Oh,
Sisters,
okay. I
and it
wonder,
was
but
just, oh, I loved it.
we've actually have seen it. I didn't even realize that. We've seen it because here in the US, actually now for a while, I don't know if it's still there, but Hallmark has a streaming service and they actually picked it up for a time at least. And I
Really?
don't know if it's still there. It's a streaming service that's like only available in the US right now.
Oh,
And then I think it's also was for a while even on Amazon Prime here in the US. So
wow.
so
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
glad
know.
to
Yeah,
hear
so I hadn't realized when you
that.
said that. It's like, okay, so you were a part of that show because we watched it and we did really enjoy that show because
I love it.
it's a really great show. Lots of great Canadian talent because I'm very partial to Canadians. I'll be honest. I mean, I've met so many amazing Canadians that are in the industry and they've become my good friends. And so, um, yes, I mean, sure, I'm not saying that there isn't talent in the US, but I love it when there's, when Canadians get recognized because also Canadians tend to be very nice. I don't think I've ever met a mean Canadian. So,
I don't, yeah, I would agree. I haven't met very many, but I mean, there's a couple, but I haven't met very many.
right, exactly. So, okay, well, that's good to know. We might have to go back and rewatch that. It's been a couple years since I think we've watched Little Men, and I know we really enjoyed it. So
Oh,
so
it was
now
a
we'll have to go back and watch it. Since I've talked with you, it's like we'll
yeah.
be able to make that connection.
You've
So
got like Jennifer Wigmore playlist ready to go. You got
exactly. Oh yeah, I
Survivor,
know that. Plus Designated Survivor
add
and
Malory Towers to the list.
yeah, and so now
Malory Towers.
that show I'm not familiar with. So that can you tell us about that show?
Yeah, so Malory Towers is written by Enid Blyton. Enid Blyton is like a beloved author from England who, we're talking 1940s, British boarding school girls, right? And she wrote this series of books called Malory Towers. She's also written tons of other books as well, but nobody had ever made Malory Towers into a series before. And so we started making the series a few years ago, and I was in the first season. I couldn't be in the second season because I was in Why the Last Man, but it's a wonderful show. It just like tugs at the heart for sure. Yeah, it's a good one. Play a proper British headmistress in that one.
Oh, okay. Oh, that sounds like my kind of show. Okay, we have to look that up. See, this is what happens. I interview people, and then my list of things to watch grows. But I love that because I'm constantly also looking for things for my mom to watch. Because because when I'm doing like all this work and she just wants to relax, and it's like, okay, here, mom, here's the next thing you can binge. That's kind of my job to go and find what's the next thing. So you're giving me some great ideas for her as well. So that's
Well,
great.
there's two seasons out now, and then the third season's coming out soon, and they're about to start shooting. I think they're about to start shooting the fourth. So, yeah.
Okay, that sounds awesome. All right, well, hey, I'm getting this is good. Um, so of course, a lot of the people who are watching or listening are going to know you from the Winter Palace because that's actually how I made this connection. Um, the Winter Palace being the first movie that Danica McKellar made for GAC, and it was a reunification of her and Neal Bledsoe, who I'm going to be talking to Neal Bledsoe before too long. He's actually filming, so we have to work it with his schedule, but he and I are going to be chatting before too long as well. But
he'll make me laugh. He's a jokester.
that I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, of course, you've been a part of these series. Had you done any romantic comedies before Winter Palace?
I haven't. I mean, I've done. I've done a lot of television series, and I have played romantic leads in television shows. But I've never gone down the Hallmark or the movies or those romantic movies. I enjoy watching them, but I never actually got any before. And so it was just it was so great to get this one. Now I just want to I just want to do them. I want to do more. I want to do more of them because it was so fun. I mean, it was just, it was so much fun. And we really, we had a blast shooting it. It was just a great experience. What wonderful group of people. And just really, it was a really terrific experience. And so I would love to do more. And I'm really proud of GAC. I think for their first sort of their own creative, what a movie, right? They did a great job. And yeah, and so we're super proud of it. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. There was a question. Okay, going back to Malory Towers, Timmy's asking, did you shoot that in the UK?
Yes, we did. We shot all the exteriors in Cornwall, or just outside of Cornwall, at a beautiful abbey called Heartland Abbey. Oh, one of the most breathtaking places I've ever been in my life. And then we shot all the interiors here in Toronto. So it's a co-pro between Canada and the BBC.
Oh,
Yeah, Canada and England.
okay.
Yeah.
Timmy's giving you the invitation that the next time you're in the UK, she wants to meet you. So
Oh, how nice.
she's saying
Well,
that.
so. I love England. I mean, it's my second home. I'm actually a British citizen. And my parents were British, as Wigmore, I mean, of course. And so they got me my passport when I was just a kid. And so I've been back and forth to England many times. And so I consider it my second home. So, that's very likely I'll be in England. Certainly, hopefully, when this pandemic's over, I'll get over there at some point.
Exactly. Yeah. So going back to the Winter Palace then. So how was that experience? And you said it was a great time, great people. It was wonderful experience. How did that experience of filming that movie compare to some of the other work that you've done? I mean, were there things that you found that were different about filming a rom-com like this?
I mean, I think comedy is harder to film than you probably think. It's actually harder than, straight up drama. And that's partially because of, you have to get a bunch of timing right. I don't know if when we did the Instagram live I was on with Danica and Neal, and we talked a little bit about that scene when we first arrive at the chalet. And that scene was actually 4 different scenes. And it was supposed to be shot in 4 different scenes. And it was actually Danica and Neal who said, we should just shoot all of these as one big scene. And that was extremely challenging because, of course, it was a lot of business. It was a lot of stuff going on. Poor Luke Marty, who he just kept going back and forth to get the suitcases, and it was a long way to go get them, and he had to go out. Like it was a lot. He got a lot of exercise that day, going back and forth with those suitcases. But it was a really it was a complicated thing to block and to get it right, because it's about timing and angles, and there was a lot of lines. So normally we shoot in small scenes, but this we shot like all of that. And I think a lot of people have commented that that set the whole stage for this when we kind of come in as like this bluster of business and busy work and that we take over. And if that scene had been shot in different sections, it might not have had that sort of we're taking over kind of impact. And so it was a really, I thought it was a really great thing. But I think I love working. I mean, I love being on set. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world. And I'm such a people person that it's hard for me to choose any experience that because they're all so great, like I'm so grateful to be working and so grateful to be able to create these characters and that was a really happy set. It was a very, very, sometimes some sets aren't as happy as others, and there can be reasons for that, just like some job environments aren't as happy as other job environments. You've all had that.
Mhm.
But this was a really happy set. And it was also like beautiful. It was such a beautiful location. And it was, you could just, if you wasn't your scene, you could just stand out on the balcony of the chalet, where Danica, you saw where I blew the trumpet, remember?
Yeah.
And many shots of that beautiful balcony. And that looked out over a incredible view of lakes and hills and forests. And I mean, it was breathtaking. So you can't not really be happy when you're getting paid to work on a show that's really happy, where people are wonderful and treat you incredibly well in an idyllic location. It's kind of, I don't know, how can it not be great?
That's cool. Now,
Yeah.
had you been a fan of Danica before working with her?
Of course, I knew who Danica was, and I'd heard about her Hallmark movies. I think I even saw. I don't know if I saw Christmas Carousel. I might have seen like the one with her and Neal. I think
Yes.
I saw a
Okay.
little bit of it, and I've certainly auditioned for my fair share
Yeah.
of Hallmark movies over the years.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I knew who she was, of course, Winnie. I mean, like,
Yeah.
who hasn't watched The Wonder Years and fallen in love with her? So, I mean, yeah, of course I knew who she was. But what was amazing about Danica is she's just such a good person. She's a really kind, generous person. She's also really smart.
Yes.
Like earth-shatteringly smart. And when you're confronted with that sort of smart and goodness, it makes for a really great work environment because she's really smart. She knows what she's doing. She was one of the producers on Winter Palace, which allowed us a kind of freedom to work together as a team. The four of us worked really closely together. We had so many scenes together that we worked a lot together to run the lines and work the scene out. And so by the time we were shooting it, we all felt really comfortable. And so we got to know each other really well. And I had some great chats with Danica over the 3 weeks that we were shooting the Winter Palace. And she is everything you think she is. She really is.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome to hear. And I've heard that from other people who've worked with her too. But it's just nice to hear that.
She's very dreamy.
So
She's a dreamy boss. You gotta work with her all the time.
that's good.
Danica, anytime. Sign me up. I'll come running.
That's good. That's good. Um, so do you have anything coming up? Of course, I mean I know the Winter Palace. They will. There's they're replaying it on GAC at various times. But do you have anything coming up that you can mention? Well, you've done an audio book, I believe. Isn't that what it was an audio
Yeah.
book?
Oh,
Yeah.
that was great. I haven't done an audiobook before, and oh, what a wonderful experience that was. I narrated a book called The Spirits Up by Todd Babiak. He's a Canadian author, originally from Alberta. He lives in Australia now. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. I loved reading it and narrating all the characters. It was a really fun read. Great dysfunctional family ghost story.
Okay.
Really. Yeah, great. I would look it out. It's really, really great. Even
Okay.
if you don't want to listen to me rambling on, read the book because it's a really good book. Really
That's good
good.
to know. That's good to know.
And it's been
And
pretty quiet, I have to say. I mean, it's since the pandemic here I'm in Toronto in Ontario, and we've gone back into lockdown. We've been into lockdown for a little while, and so that every time that happens, it kind of slows the film and television business a little bit. And so it's been pretty quiet since Christmas. It's supposed to start picking up, so we'll see. I'm sure something will come out of the woodwork. But in the meantime, I've been teaching and painting. I'm working on commission that's going to be the death of me, maybe, but I'm gonna get through it.
oh goodness, yeah. Well, and you're writing something as well, isn't that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I like writing a lot, and it's such a different practice than the other things, and I don't confess to be very good at it, but I really enjoy the process of it, and it's a play called Measure Squared, and it's based on Measure for Measure, which is actually that first play that I did
Hmm.
um, way back when I first started. It's a re-examination of that story, that William Shakespeare play.
So, I'm sure that in this audience that I have, that there's going to be someone who wants to ask questions. I have no doubt, because these are some people that always have really good questions. So, is there anybody who would like to come on and ask Jennifer a question? Oh, Paula. Okay, good. Okay, so let's put
We're
you
probably
here.
supposed to know this answer, but I don't know it. How do you find out about the movies that are available for you, or do you have to wait for them to approach you, or are you going out for auditions, or how do they get a hold of you?
Through my agent.
Okay.
I'm very lucky. I have an agent, and most actors have some kind of representation, and so agents function as a middle person between me and the casting directors and the producers. And so casting directors will send agents what they call breakdowns, which are like, this is the kind of movies we're doing, and this is what there's in them, and these are the kinds of parts we're looking to cast. And then the agents say, well, I have 5 of those people. I'm going to submit those people for consideration for an audition. And then casting goes, yeah, we'd like to see Jennifer for this part. And then I would audition. So it's the agent that helps me get the material. In fact, it's probably one of the only ways you can get auditions is through an agent. I think there are some people that represent themselves, but that's a lot of work to be combing through all the breakdowns that come out every day and find the parts that are appropriate for me. Because obviously I can't audition for everything. I mean, I'd like to, but I can't. So, yeah, so it's through an agent is how I get called. Yeah. Sometimes it's also through my relationships that I've developed over the many years that I've been doing this. So if especially in theater, your connections to directors or producers or people down the road who are making their own shows and stuff like that, you can sometimes get jobs that way. Um, in fact, the director of the Winter Palace is a very old friend of mine named T.W. Peacock, and so it was a real joy to work with him again on this show. So that was an already established relationship that might have helped me get the job. I don't know, maybe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Paula, that was actually a good question. See, this is what I love. I love that I have the people coming on and asking questions, because some of these questions I'd never think to ask. And there's just something really special about getting the people themselves to come and ask the question. All right. So Timmy.
Oh, Timmy. Ahoy, mate.
Yes. Hi. I'm actually not English. I'm Hungarian, but I've been
Oh, you're
living here for
Hungarian.
I've been living here for 12 years now.
Oh, my goodness.
And I would love to meet you next time you're here. So my question is about your theater experience. What did you find the most challenging and most rewarding about being on stage in front of a live audience?
Oh, well, the most rewarding is just the liveness of it, the sounds of the audience, the experience. When I teach actors, I try to remind them that the audience is part of the performance. It's part of it. Every performance is different because you have a different audience, and they react differently, they laugh differently, so that immediate connection with there's nothing like live theater, nothing like it. It's just seeing real people, alive humans enacting a story in front of you is just so different than a film and television. And so that realness, that honesty of the human experience is what I love so much about the theater and being live on stage. It's just a very intimate and incredible thing that we do as humans, and we've been doing it for a really long time, way back to the Greeks, right? Because there's something unlike anything else to see human experiences enacted in front of you, right? There's just something wonderful about that. And what are the most challenging? I think the most challenging for me is that I don't get to do it as often as I want. It's I love the theater, and I love being in the theater, and I would love to do it more. Um, uh, and so I find that the most challenging. But I guess it's also it can be really challenging to have the energy to do a play from beginning to end. It's a long time and it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of memorization and commitment and work and practice and rehearsal to get to the point where you can do a run of Measure for Measure for 2.5 hours, and make that ending great, So that, I think that's one of the most challenging things about theater is it's relentless. You in film and television, we shoot a scene here, we go for lunch, we come shoot another scene, we have a snack, right? You do it a couple of times and you're done, and in theater, you have to do it over and over and over and over again and find the newness of it every single time you do it. And that can be takes so much energy, but that's also the beauty of it too, right? So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. What a lovely question.
I did remember that I wanted to be sure to ask you about your volunteer work. I think is that I definitely want to highlight that, because I love the fact that so many of the people that I interview that are in film and TV, they use that as a platform to really further great causes out there. And so do you want to tell us about some of the volunteer work for the boards that you're involved with?
Oh, sure. That's easy to talk about.
Good.
I think I've been a volunteer for a long, long time, and I've always loved it. Both my parents were volunteers, and so I learned, the wonderful giving back is really it's a joyful experience, and it's also an incredibly rewarding experience, and I learn an awful lot. I think my dad was a unionist. My mom was in the union too, and I think I learned really early how important the labor unions are, especially for artists. And so I've been very active in labor arts organizations for a long, long time and advocating for the rights of artists. And particularly in the last, since 2017, the rights of women in the arts, and making spaces more safe and respectful, and really been a staunch advocate for reform, for protecting our spaces and protecting our rights when we're working. And so I've done that through a number of organizations over the last 5 years, really, since the Me Too movement got going in earnest. And it's been an incredible journey, and it's been a very it's been an eye-opening experience. I've learned an incredible amount about how our business works and how we can make changes to make it better. And there's just been such great movement in this regard, and so yeah, it's been a real passion for the last 5 years for sure.
That's that's awesome. I'm it's interesting that you bring up the Me Too movement, because I remember I actually have an actress friend, Kristen Booth. I don't know. Do you know who she is?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Of course
Yeah.
I know who Kristen is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figured you probably did, but I didn't want to assume. It's interesting when I started to hear about the Me Too movement. I'll be honest, I was just kind of like, oh boy, is this just another? I was all ready to just pass it off. I will admit that I didn't. I almost didn't even want to take it seriously, which I know is not right. I'm not saying. I'm just saying that was my initial reaction, because
Yeah,
I've gotten inundated for so many years about all the women's lib stuff that happens in this country, and I just was like, oh, is this that again? I mean, that was my initial response. But because I had developed a relationship with Kristen, I paid attention to what she was posting. And I decided, I'm going to go into this and see what she's writing about it and what she's putting out there. And I remember actually reaching out to her and saying, you changed my mind about the Me Too movement. And you really opened my mind up by telling your story, by being truly authentic. I was actually opened my mind and realized this was a valid thing. This was not just something that I needed to pass over, but it was actually something that I needed to be aware of and supportive of. And it wasn't just a new fad. I think sometimes my mind used to be several years ago, and those on here who know me, they know that I've gone through a lot of transformation in the past couple of years. But I used to be a little more narrow-minded and thinking, just making up my mind quickly on these things. So it's great to hear you talking about this, because I've watched what has happened with the Me Too movement, and it's been phenomenal to see the change that's been coming about, the way that the positive things that have happened by people telling their stories, by people and women and men. I've actually, it's been really cool. Then I have all these male friends in the industry too, who have gotten on board with the Me Too movement.
Oh, absolutely. We couldn't do it without them. I mean, my goodness, that's they're half of the puzzle, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Kristen is an incredible inspiration. And, the fact she had so much courage to talk about her story and the experiences that she had. And so she inspires me. She inspires many of us. You're right. Incredible change has happened because of women like Kristen, and because of the movement moving forward, and incredible men standing beside women, and making significant changes in our industry. And so it's because of women like Kristen that it's happened, and so there's been so much change, and I think it's definitely on the right track, to being a much safer and more respectful industry for everyone, not just women, but everyone. And yeah.
Well, that's great that you're so involved with that. That's just, and so just to wrap things up. So I know it's clear you love what you do. You're very involved in, the whole art scene, which is great. But when you have free time, downtime, which probably doesn't happen a whole lot, but when you do have that, what kinds of things do you like to do?
Oh, I love this question so much, because that really just gets to the heart of who I am, doesn't it? Okay. I love to crochet. I know. I'm kind of obsessed with it a little bit, and yeah. So I've been crocheting for a couple of years, like really in earnest since like the pandemic, maybe even a bit before. But yeah, I'm a little obsessed. I have making things. I love crocheting. What else do I like to do? I mean, I love watching TV. I love, it's not just my job, and I have to watch a whole bunch to stay up with what's shooting and who's making what and what's going on. But I also really enjoy it as a medium, and I love reading. I love reading, you know. But talk about romance movies. I quite like romance novels.
Mhm.
Quite a big fan of the romance novels. My little side passion. Crochet and read romance novels.
Oh, hey, that worked. No, that's great. No, I'm very glad I asked. Wow. So I haven't done crocheting in ages. I did it when of all things, I did crocheting when I was a teenager, and then when I was a young adult. And since then, I really haven't done much with it. But that's cool. That's
Really enjoy
exciting.
it. I find it really like I do it while I watch TV, and I find it makes me feel less guilty about just watching TV.
You're doing.
Because I'm actually doing so that's totally my personality. Like I said, I can't just watch TV. I have to do something while I'm watching
Right.
TV.
Right.
It's
We
totally
do.
so
We do. It looks like we do have a question.
Ruth,
So
Ruth.
yes, we do.
Hi,
Someone
Ruth.
who, yeah, someone who shares my name. I know Ruth Reedy quite well, or at least it's not that I haven't met her in person, but I know her very well online. So.
I had to take a phone call, so I might have missed it, but when you referred to your website where we could look at things, and what is that? Or can we in the chat something where we can find your website?
It's just JenniferWigmore.com. I'll put it in the chat for you right now.
Good question. Good question, Ruth. Yes, and I'll be sure to have that posted and everything. When I post it, all that information will be there. But good question.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. You can see everything on there. My art to my acting to my writing is there, and then my Instagram. I try and keep that up to date as possible. And Twitter, I'm on Twitter as well. Same Jennifer Wigmore, and you can find me on any of those platforms. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for asking that.
Good question. Good question. All right.
So many Twitter followers after the Winter Palace. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Yes. That will only grow. That will only grow.
What a community.
All right.
So GC's got to get another movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, of course you will. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, they're going to bring you.
Winter Palace 2. I've heard rumors. Winter Palace 2.
That would be awesome. I think
you
guys
started their relationship, right? I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities there.
That's right. Exactly. So thank you, Jennifer. It's been a joy. I'm so glad that you were able to stop by today, and it's been great chatting with you. Just great. And thank you also to our audience. You guys have been great. And
thank you, Jennifer, and all the best to you.
And to you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for coming. And hopefully we'll do it again. Next time I do a GAC movie or maybe a Hallmark movie, we'll do another one.
That's right. Sure. That's right. We've established the connection and hope, and maybe one of these days there'll be an event where we can meet in person, and that would be just amazing.
Ooh, wouldn't that be good? Oh, I would love that.
That would be great. Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thank you all. Have a great rest of your week. Well, I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. Jennifer is incredible. I can hardly wait till the next time that we get to see her on our television set. And I look forward to her coming back soon. And hopefully many of you will get to come to the next podcast recording with her. In the meantime, be sure that you subscribe to my podcast on Apple Podcasts. You would do a great favor and like it, review it, share it with somebody else. We are so enjoying getting to do these podcast episodes. Loads are coming up. Please join the Facebook group if you like. And I just hope that you have a great rest of your week. Thank you all for all your support. You overwhelm me. We have nearly 1,000 people. We're just under 1,000 people on the Facebook group. How cool is that? God bless you.